Some hearings aren't just internal affairs. There are stories that, once heard, make it clear why silence is no longer an option. This wasn't a high-profile case. There were no gunshots, no bloodshed, just a black woman, intelligent, sharp, and unyielding, and a white officer, a man used to yelling at women and still being praised for following protocol. One day, he crossed the line. Only this time, he picked the wrong woman. Have you ever watched someone in power fall? If not, then sit down, take a deep breath, and stay until the very last second, because today's twist will make you rethink the entire system and ask yourself, have we been calling the wrong thing justice all along? Some days begin so simply, you never expect what's waiting around the corner. It was a warm Wednesday afternoon in Rooster Creek, the kind of town where people can argue for hours over the best donut but rarely question fairness. Lieutenant Denise Carter had just wrapped up a long meeting at the city police department. Her uniform was still perfectly pressed, her badge gleaming in the late afternoon sun. She wasn't in a rush, just planning to stop by her usual spot, Big Stan's Mart, for a bottle of water and her favorite cream-filled donut. Like always, it was a completely ordinary errand, a small, simple ritual, the kind she relied on to find comfort amid long, demanding shifts. She walked into the store, gave a familiar nod to Mr. Stan, the elderly Cuban owner who loved telling stories about his days trading bananas, and headed straight to her go-to items, a cold glacier water and a powdered sugar donut, soft as clouds. But then, there are moments in life when you feel someone's eyes on you, not admiration, not curiosity, but something heavy, scrutinizing, a stare that coats you in suspicion you never asked for. Denise turned around. At the end of the aisle stood a young police officer, posture rigid, eyes cold. She didn't recognize him. Despite the clear badge on her left chest, he didn't look away, as if she were hiding something in her sleeve or up to no good by the snack display. She kept a polite smile, offered a respectful nod, the kind of courtesy cops give one another. But instead of returning it, he began walking toward her, each step heavy, like steel-toed boots on tile. In that moment, Denise knew today's donut might not taste so sweet after all. "Excuse me, ma'am. Can I see some ID?" The question wasn't loud but loud enough for the three people in the chip aisle to pause and look over. Denise blinked. She looked the officer in the eye. His name tag read, Deputy Kyle Brennan, young, white, with the posture of someone who just graduated from the Superhero Justice Academy. "May I ask the reason for the check?" she replied, her voice calm but firm. She was used to staying composed under pressure. But this? A cop confronting another cop for buying a donut? Brennan raised his eyebrows and crossed his arms like a TV detective on a local drama set. "We got a report that a woman in uniform was acting suspicious." "Suspicious?" Denise echoed. "Yes, you're holding a water bottle you haven't paid for yet," he said. "Ah," Denise said with a soft smile, raising the bottle. "I was on my way to the checkout." Still unpaid, he snapped back, as if he'd just delivered a smoking gun argument. For a moment, Denise almost laughed, partly because of the absurdity of it all, partly because she remembered a training lecture on the misuse of authority, never thinking she'd one day become the live-action case study. "Do you know who I am?" she asked. "That's usually what guilty people ask," Brennan smirked, suddenly pulling out his handcuffs. Denise didn't move, not out of fear, but because a question had popped into her head. "Am I really about to be arrested over a cold bottle of water in the very city I've protected for 12 years? And true to Murphy's Law, if anything can get worse, it will, especially when you're holding a donut and no one's recording." Deputy Kyle Brennan hit the siren like he'd just uncovered a coup d'etat, not simply encountered a female officer stopping at a convenience store for water. People around began to gather. A few pulled out their phones. An elderly man picking out bananas adjusted his glasses, squinting in disbelief. Denise was handcuffed right in front of the checkout counter while the cashier was still scanning her bottle of water. "You have the right to remain silent," Brennan began reciting the Miranda rights, his voice as flat as someone reading karaoke lyrics. And I have the right to sue you for wrongful arrest, Denise replied, her voice oddly calm. She didn't resist. She didn't raise her voice. She just smiled, a smile that made Brennan uneasy, but he stood firm. After all, as he once told his colleagues over lunch, I am the law around here. She was escorted out of the store, still handcuffed, still thirsty, and notably still unpaid for her favorite cinnamon sugar donut. At the county precinct, the scene could have been mistaken for a sitcom. She walked in alongside Brennan. No one had any idea what was happening. Lieutenant Denise Holloway, the same woman who led a hostage rescue operation on the city's west side, the one awarded a medal by the mayor, now appeared as a petty theft suspect. Don't worry, everyone, Brennan announced. I've got the situation under control. A young officer in the back blurted out, she's my boss, dude. The tension in the room suddenly became thicker than the day-old coffee still sitting in the break room. Denise sat calmly in the middle of the room, still cuffed. Brennan stood, trying to explain himself. My actions were entirely within procedure. We have security cameras from the store. A deep, steady voice rang out from the back. Captain Willard, a tall, seasoned black man known for his intolerance of nonsense, said, and we'll review the footage. If Lieutenant Holloway committed a crime, I'll handle it. But if she didn't, he paused, locking eyes with Brennan, then I hope you've got a fresh resume. Denise smiled again, this time with just a hint of spicy Mexican chili. She knew the game had just begun. In the main briefing room, the lights dimmed. A large screen flickered on. The store's security footage played. The room fell silent, as if everyone were watching a lottery draw, except everyone already knew they didn't win. The footage showed Denise walking in, greeting the store owner, who smiled back warmly as always. She picked up a bottle of water, grabbed a granola bar, her favorite, oat chocolate, and headed to the register. Everything was routine, nothing remotely suspicious, and very clearly, the scanner beeped as she paid. Pause there, Captain Willard said, his voice firm. The technician froze the frame right as Denise took out her wallet, the store owner saying cheerfully, "Have a good day, Lieutenant." Brennan, now sweating like he just jogged 5 kilometers in body armor, swallowed hard. It appears this footage isn't showing the full context, he stammered, nervously fiddling with the buttons of his now oversized uniform as his confidence visibly evaporated. Captain Willard nodded. You're right. Let's keep watching. The video resumed. Denise turned and walked out. Brennan, from across the aisle, intercepted her. At that moment, the whole room collectively leaned back in their chairs as they witnessed Brennan's demeanor on screen, cold, arrogant, and unmistakably low-budget villain energy. He didn't just stop her, he reached out with the full "I am the judge, jury, and God" stance. Not only does he have no cause, he looks kind of dumb, someone whispered. Laughter began rippling through the room. Brennan flushed red. A female officer from Internal Affairs dropped her phone into the potted plant from laughing too hard. Denise remained still, hands gently folded on the table, as calm as someone sipping afternoon tea while waiting for another round of biscuits. So, Captain Willard finally spoke, eyes narrowing in on Brennan. Do you have anything else to add? Brennan stood stiff, lips pressed so tight it looked like he was trying to remember the alphabet. Then he said the worst possible thing he could say, she looked suspicious. The entire room fell silent, as if someone had hit the pause button on the world. Willard slowly walked toward Brennan. I look at you and think you're suspicious. That means I can cuff you for no reason, right? Brennan was speechless. Denise, speaking for the first time, said calmly, maybe I should rewrite the report, this time about an unlawful arrest. The lights in the room came back on, but the only thing burning brighter than before was Brennan's career, smoldering like a broken toaster. He stood in the middle of the briefing room like a 4th grader caught cheating on a test but still pretending to be the teacher. Captain, I was just acting on my professional instincts, he said. He pointed at Denise, who by that point was calmly sipping coffee like she was grading his behavior. She had, a defiant attitude, very likely hiding something in her wallet. The room held its breath. One officer in the back leaned over and whispered to a colleague, hiding what? Her integrity. If I were her, I'd flash that thing around. Willard nodded slowly. Hiding something in her wallet, like, say, an official police ID ranking above yours, Brennan. Brennan tried to smile, but it looked more like he was trying to suppress a toothache than explain his logic. Well, I can't exactly check everyone's wallet to see who's a lieutenant, can I? An audible aha rang from the corner, the internal affairs officer who had just retrieved her phone from the potted plant. But you only checked hers, and in a way that makes me think we should update the criminal code to include a new section, offenses committed Brennan style. Laughter erupted. Willard waved for silence, then walked to the whiteboard, grabbed a marker, and wrote one huge word, procedure. You claim you followed procedure, he asked Brennan. Yes, about 70%, Brennan mumbled, red in the face like the ink he spilled on last week's report. Willard turned to Denise and smiled. Lieutenant, if you followed procedure 70% of the time during a hostage rescue, what do you think would happen? Denise shrugged. Maybe I'd save a cat. Meanwhile, the hostages would be live-streaming with the hashtag, Don't Give Me to Brennan. Another wave of laughter rolled through the room. Brennan sighed. I'd like to revise my report. No need, Willard cut in. We already received the report from the security camera, and it appears more honest than your creative writing. Brennan opened his mouth, maybe to say something profound, maybe just to sob, but right then, the door swung open. Police Chief Harriet Monreef entered, heels clicking, voice like a seasoned prosecutor, and eyes sharp enough to peel paint off walls. She looked Brennan up and down and asked bluntly, Are you the one who arrested Lieutenant Denise for allegedly stealing a $1.29 granola bar? Yes, ma'am. But she looked very commanding, like she could be planning something big. Well, she is doing something big, like dismantling systemic bias in this department, Monreef said. She stepped closer, eyeing Brennan like she was choosing which name to erase from the payroll. Prepare your resignation letter or prepare for garage duty. Your choice. Brennan stood frozen, like a statue even the pigeons wouldn't bother with. The meeting ended in a hush, quiet but seismic. Denise stood up, adjusted her badge, and smiled at her colleagues, many of whom nodded back with respect. As for Brennan, he returned to his desk, stared at his badge, and sighed like someone who just lost the Netflix password. After the truth-unveiling meeting in the command room, Denise didn't return to her office right away. She had more important work to do, something Brennan had clearly never considered in his 12 years of wearing the badge. Writing an honest report at the Internal Affairs office, Denise knocked softly, because even truth needs an invitation. Come in, said investigator Robin Elkins, known for reviewing case files faster than an officer can say, I didn't know the camera was rolling. Denise placed the folder on the desk. Witness statements, incident report, testimony from store clerk Patel, and the best part. The original report Brennan submitted, along with the unedited security footage. Robin pushed up her glasses, glanced at the file, then chuckled. Oh, Brennan wrote that you fled with a tactically defiant demeanor. You mean walked out of the store and opened your water bottle? Exactly. I think the tactic was to use bottled water to rinse off bias, Denise said, smiling softly, though her eyes were sharp as a blade. Robin paused, thoughtful. You know, if I open a formal internal investigation and release these statements, Brennan's not just going to lose his job. I know, Denise replied flatly. And you still want to go through with it? Denise nodded. Not to destroy anyone, but to remind everyone that that badge, that power, isn't a license to humiliate others. Robin nodded slowly. Then I'll do my job, and you brace yourself. A storm's coming. 3 days later, Denise was called into the command office, but this time not to answer accusations. This time to be promoted. Police Chief Harriet Monreeve stood before the full department, including many who had watched her being led away with skeptical eyes just weeks earlier. After reviewing all the evidence, hearing witness statements, and verifying internal reports, I am announcing an official decision, Monreeve said. She turned to Denise. Lieutenant Denise Holloway, as of today, you are appointed to your new role, Head of Internal Affairs Oversight, responsible for investigating professional misconduct and ethical violations. Brennan, standing in the back, looked like he'd just swallowed a pair of handcuffs. Denise stepped forward to receive her assignment. She gave a small nod, then turned to face the room. Thank you. I didn't expect to be here this way. 3 weeks ago, I was treated like a criminal for choosing granola over a donut. A few chuckles broke out. But today, I stand here to remind everyone, no one, not even me, is above the line between right and wrong. And we must have the courage to call out the wrong, even when it wears the same uniform. After the ceremony, Brennan wandered out into the parking lot, dazed, like someone who just rewatched a video of themselves falling into their own trap. Reynolds, the younger officer who once looked up to him, caught up. Bren, I just saw your name on the transfer list. Yeah, Brennan muttered. Rural Response Unit, night shift. Reynolds scratched his head. Well, I guess that's good. Time to reflect on your tactical jogging strategy. Brennan glared but said nothing. He just turned away and walked off, his shiny badge glinting on his back, looking more like a dry-cleaning tag than a symbol of authority. Denise returned to her new office, a chair once occupied by people who specialized in looking the other way. On her desk sat the Department Code of Ethics, a steaming mug of coffee, and a plaque with a quote, "Justice isn't loud. It just shows up and takes notes." On her first day in her new role, Denise entered with a powerful, invisible weapon, clarity, and a giant gray document printer roughly the size of a scooter. Need help setting up your computer? A sleepy-eyed tech guy asked. Denise smiled. No thanks. I just need 3 things, Wi-Fi, coffee, and access to the last 10 years of internal complaint records. The tech nearly choked on his coffee. Excuse me. 1 hour later, Denise's screen lit up with a long list titled Unresolved Archived Complaints for Internal Review Only. Total, 437 entries. And the name that appeared most often? That's right, Sergeant Brennan Connors. The same notes kept popping up, repeated like a lullaby in a broken system, no clear evidence. The complainant was uncooperative. The incident wasn't serious enough for disciplinary action. Resolved internally, verbally. Denise leaned back in her chair, flipping through each report. One case, Brennan shoving a black mother outside a school gate. No footage. Another, Brennan confiscating a student's phone for recording the police and, accidentally, dropping it into the security booth toilet. And then, the arrest of a female teacher just because she laughed at the wrong time during an ID check. One question echoed in Denise's mind, how many people chose silence, thinking, no one would believe me anyway. She began sending emails, summoning those whose complaints had been previously ignored. Many were so surprised they thought it was a scam. A middle-aged man's voice trembled on the phone. You're real police calling back about the 2017 incident. I thought those reports vanished into some black hole. Denise gently replied, we are cleaning out that black hole, and this time, I want to hear your story in your own voice, not just from paper. A week later, Denise's new office was no longer as quiet as it had been. Walls were covered in case diagrams and color-coded sticky notes, like a murder board from a detective film. Internal affairs staff started glancing at each other suspiciously, wondering, wait, did I ever cover for anyone? She even created a special internal mailbox labeled, anything you want to confess before there's video? Anonymous messages started trickling in. One read, I once heard Brennan brag he knew who controlled the cameras, said, just delete a few minutes and it's all good. Not sure if he was joking or not. Denise typed a single reply, "Thank you. Even jokes leave a trail. We'll verify." One Monday morning, Brennan entered the admin meeting room to print a proposal, only to find all his system access had been revoked. "Network glitch?" he asked an IT staffer. The guy glanced at him, shrugged. "Not sure. But Officer Holloway did say some accounts were too loud and needed a break to help the server breathe." On the internal bulletin board, a new memo had just been circulated to the entire force from the Internal Oversight Office. "We are conducting a comprehensive review of complaints involving misuse of authority, especially those tied to Officer Brennan Connors and related personnel. We encourage all witnesses, victims, or internal staff who have observed such conduct to report through the secure channel." Then, one quiet Friday afternoon, an email landed in Denise's inbox from the Conduct Review Unit. "We've discovered a misdated video file linked to Brennan's March 4th incident. The raw footage shows him grabbing a teenager by the collar and slamming him onto the curb, contradicting his report." Denise smiled, typing her reply, "Send it to me immediately. I think it's time Brennan watched the movie he's been starring in for the past 10 years. This time, the unedited cut." That same afternoon, Denise entered the internal meeting room holding a USB stick. In her left hand was a stack of files so thick, dropping them could trigger geological tremors. A young officer whispered, "Officer Holloway, bringing in the sly pep of the Library of Congress again." Denise didn't laugh. She just dropped the stack onto the table. Thump. The sound alone made a few people straighten up, like a surprise pop quiz in middle school. Brennan was present, too. His chair tilted back, arms crossed, wearing that smug, "none of this will touch me" look. Denise turned on the projector. The big screen lit up. On it, footage showed a young black teen being slammed to the curb, his head hitting a manhole cover. A very clear figure appeared, Brennan Connors, sunglasses, radio on hip, the all-too-familiar stance, cold face, hard hands. The entire room fell silent. Denise moved to the next slide, an audio recording. "Disable the northeast camera for me. They don't need to see the part where I grabbed his collar. Just leave in the part where you pushed him over." That voice? It was Brennan. Someone in the room coughed. Others exchanged glances. A young officer whispered, "Wait, wasn't that the clip we used in the Model Youth Engagement Training module?" Denise nodded without a mic, but still clearly audible. "We used a fabricated clip as an example of proper conduct when, in fact, the original was a serious violation. Today, I'm here to correct both the truth and how we've been defining right and wrong for the past 10 years. Brennan still hadn't spoken, but his face began to flush. A bead of sweat slid down his collar, not from the heat. Denise stepped forward and placed another printed document on the table in front of him, summary of 24 complaints in 5 years, all naming Brennan Connors. Of those, 9 involved unnecessary force against women, 5 against minors, and 1 against an 82-year-old grandmother shopping late. That grandmother was marked in the report as non-compliant and resistant because she refused to put down her shopping basket. The air was now as heavy as a pot of broth at the end of a long day. Denise stood tall, speaking evenly. "I know some people may think I'm attacking a fellow officer, but if I let the truth fall into the trash, then I'm no longer a police officer. I'm just a paid employee who keeps quiet. And that's not why I joined the force." A timid round of applause began. Then a few more joined. Then the whole room, except Brennan. He shot to his feet, his chair clattering back. "You're going to come for me over a damn video? One mistake after all the times I saved lives." Denise replied without missing a beat, "You may have saved people, but that doesn't give you the right to harm others and use good deeds as your excuse. There's no chapter in the law titled, 'If you've ever done good, you can kick people.'" As Brennan stormed out, his usual bravado was gone. So was the pride of a man long shielded by the system. That night, the 9 o'clock news led with the story, veteran officer Brennan Connors suspended and under investigation after a damning video surfaces. Internal Affairs head Denise Holloway confirms full reopening of related case files. A hashtag began trending across social media, #NoOneIsImmune. If anyone thought Denise was just blowing things up to take down one man, they underestimated the power of truth backed by evidence and a woman who wasn't afraid of being disliked. Because within 48 hours of that fateful meeting, a domino effect had begun. First came an unexpected announcement from the Internal Conduct Review Office: a new independent complaint review board will be reinstated. All misconduct reports will be reviewed by a newly appointed panel under the direct supervision of Denise Holloway. An older officer muttered in the break room, "Well, damn. Guess we can't lose files anymore." A young patrolman pouring coffee said, "It's fine. If you've been doing your job right, you've got nothing to worry about. But if you're the, oops, I forgot my body cam again, type, time to start remembering." Denise didn't stop at investigations. She launched a weekly internal workshop series titled White Wednesdays, a nod to cleaning up the gray areas of the force. At the first session, Denise stepped onto the stage wearing a crisp white shirt, holding a dry erase board and marker, and opened with a line that made the whole room laugh: "Today, we're not going to talk about arrest protocols. Today, I want to talk about the stare. How many seconds is considered tactical observation, and how many seconds is grounds for being kicked off the force?" The hall erupted in laughter and reflection. The story of Denise Holloway didn't stay confined to internal circles. The press started calling her the woman who cleaned up the force without a spin cycle. Local social media circulated a clip of her speech: "I'm not doing this to be a hero. I'm doing it because I'm tired of having to explain that not everyone in uniform has the right to be disrespectful." One user commented, "Every profession needs a Denise, and if it doesn't have one, that profession owes society an audit." As for Brennan, he stayed silent. In the following week, he was officially suspended, required to surrender his department phone, access badge, and perhaps most painfully, the key to the VIP break room with the massage chair. Rumor has it he tried to submit a formal rebuttal. The review board responded with just 3 words: "Watch the footage." Then something unexpected happened. Officers who had once stayed quiet started submitting complaints about past misconduct they had witnessed but never dared speak up about. One young female officer wrote in her statement, "I don't know Denise Holloway personally. But I know that because of her, I no longer have to fake a smile when someone makes a racist joke in the break room." A reporter asked her during an interview, "AST, do you consider yourself a role model for strong women?" Denise smiled softly, not proud, not evasive. "I consider myself an ordinary person who refused to stay quiet." And that was the point. Silence was what Brennan had relied on. Silence was what kept a broken system running like nothing was wrong. But now, Denise Holloway had blown that silence wide open. That day, the hearing room was packed, not because everyone was summoned, but because everyone wanted to witness it. In the front row, Denise sat poised in a navy blue suit, her hands resting on a thick dossier of evidence, complaints, email printouts, camera stills, all neatly tucked inside a file labeled "Dossier, Brennan Douglas Departmental Conduct Review." He wore a white shirt, a crooked tie, and shifty eyes, trying to appear calm, as though attending a routine meeting and not being held accountable. But Brennan knew the moment the door closed behind him, this was no longer his turf. A member of the review board opened the session. "Officer Brennan, we are not here today to punish you. We are here to hear your explanation, a privilege many of your victims never received." Brennan licked his lips. Sweat beaded along his temples. He leaned toward the mic. I never meant to be racist. It was all just a misunderstanding, just police work." Denise didn't flinch. She simply flipped open the dossier and held up a still from the security footage. Brennan sneering as he shoved an elderly black woman down the steps, walking away without a second glance. A collective gasp rippled through the room like a slow wave. A young officer stood up, voice trembling. I once saw Brennan treat a little girl horribly just because she wore a hoodie to school. But I was afraid. I saw Denise do what I couldn't. So today, I'm speaking out. Then another spoke, and another. The hearing slowly became a truth-telling reckoning, one Brennan could no longer control. Face flushed, Brennan shot to his feet. You're all traitors. You're letting a woman, someone like her, run this department. This isn't justice. This is revenge. The room fell quiet. A member of the disciplinary board tilted her head. No, Mr. Brennan. This is justice finally breathing after decades without air. Then the chairperson of the board spoke up. Based on verified evidence and sworn testimonies from fellow officers, we conclude Officer Douglas Brennan is permanently removed from the force. The case file will be forwarded to the state attorney's office for potential criminal prosecution. The gavel struck. Brennan froze. No one applauded. No one celebrated. There was only a profound stillness, like the air had just been cleared of a 1,000-pound weight. The press swarmed. One reporter asked, Lieutenant Holloway, do you have a message for young officers just starting their careers? Denise offered a soft smile. Don't let power make you forget why you put on the uniform. And if someone says you're too sensitive, remember, being sensitive to injustice isn't a weakness. It's the starting point of every real change. A new photo now hangs in Denise's office, a shot of her with community members who once filed complaints against Brennan, now smiling, seated side by side on the steps of City Hall. In the corner of the frame, handwritten, justice doesn't rise from outrage. It rises from those who refuse to be silent. Word has it Brennan now works as a supermarket security guard. There was a complaint once that he allegedly yelled at a teen wearing a hoodie. The store manager simply looked at him and said, "We don't need officers here. We need people who know how to speak with respect." Denise still goes to work every day, but now every step she takes doesn't just carry her duty. It carries a message: no one is untouchable. And justice, when someone dares to stand up, will never stay silent forever. The end and the beginning. If you believe this story deserves to be heard, like, comment, and share Denise's message with others. Because one simple truth remains, justice doesn't always come early, but if you stay patient and unafraid, it always comes right on time.